Southern Ohio Farm Show. This is Gigi Neal of OSU Extension in Claremont County, Agricultural and Natural Resources Educator.
I'm James Morris, the Agricultural and Natural Resources and Community Development Educator for the Ohio State University Extension in Brown County.
And I'm Brooke Beam, the Ohio State University Extension Educator for Agriculture, Natural Resources, and Community Development in Highland County. And we will be your hosts for the Southern Ohio Farm Show.
Hey everybody, this is Aaron Wilson, OSU Extension climatologist here for the weather update for the Southern Ohio Farm Show. This was a nice photo taken from Mary Griffith with OSU Extension showing some of those snow squalls that moved through the region about a week ago. Certainly conditions around the state have been warmer than average, both over the last week and also the last 30 days. We've seen temperatures here across Southern Ohio anywhere from 1 to 4 degrees above average over the past week, especially in our overnight lows. We just haven't seen really cold temperatures, although we did have some temperatures down into the low to mid-teens at least one night this past week. Over the last 30 days, temperatures have been running anywhere from 3 to 6 degrees above average. So our warm winter conditions continue. Looking at precipitation over the last 30 days, you can see a lot of yellows and beiges here on the map, indicating anywhere from 2 to 4 inches of liquid precipitation across most of the counties here in southern and southwest Ohio. Most of that has been in the form of liquid precipitation, though we have had a little bit of frozen precipitation as well. And as a matter of fact, if you look at these two maps across our southern counties here, we've seen anywhere from 7.5 to 15 inches of snow so far for the season. And that's running above average for counties like Highland County, Adams, and Scioto County as well. So anywhere from 100 to 150% of normal in this part of the state. A lot less snowfall across our western counties here in Ohio. Looking at the forecast this week, we thought that our pattern was going to be quite active this winter, and finally, after really a dry December and January, our pattern is shifting toward a much wetter one. We had our system move through earlier this week that brought some good rainfall. Today, we're looking at a system moving through that could drop some light snow this evening and overnight tonight. A few flurries tomorrow with much colder conditions. We're looking at highs in the 20s with overnight lows in the teens. That's going to continue through Friday, maybe a little bit warmer with some sunshine. And then our next system is going to approach for Saturday, Sunday, and even through Monday. We're looking at that rain snow potential, depending on the exact track of the low. It could be either way with temperatures pretty close to freezing here on Saturday. Perhaps a little bit warmer, mostly rain on Sunday before switching back to snowfall there by the time we get to Monday. We are looking at about an inch of liquid precipitation equivalent for the week. That'll be a bit above average and certainly some good news considering how dry it's been, relatively speaking. Looking at the next 8 to 14 days, this takes us between February 2nd and the 8th. We're looking at an elevated probability of above average temperatures and precipitation. So temperatures are likely to remain above average, and that active pattern that we've been anticipating all winter long looks like it's going to start kicking into gear here with a good chance of plenty of precipitation. So until next time, please have a great week. And as always, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and we'll see you soon. Bye for now.
Hello, I'm Dave Apsley with Ohio State University Extension. Today I'd like to introduce you to Virginia pine. Virginia pine is a native pine to Ohio, and it is found here in the unglaciated Allegheny Plateau, which is in the southeastern part of the state. The best way to identify Virginia pine is by the needles. Like all the native pines to Ohio, the needles are in bundles or bunches. Virginia pines happen to be in twos. The keys say the needles can be 1.5 inches to 3 inches in length, but more typically they're closer to that 1.5 inches in length. And again, the needles are in bundles or bunches of 2. They're somewhat V-shaped where they come together, and they have this long fascicle sheath which holds the needles together. It's right at the base. Needles tend to also be twisted, and a lot of times they're divergent, so they're going to spread apart, making the V shape. So think of V for Virginia pine. Again, needles are twisted. They tend to not be that classic blue-green like you might find in Scots pine, but they're going to be more of a yellowish green. Again, yellowish green needles in twos, oftentimes divergent, and twisted is a great way to identify Virginia pine. The new growth on the twigs of Virginia pine tends to be a purplish color with kind of a waxy coat in the spring. Right now they're much darker colored than that. And then they have cones. Cones, again, the keys say 1.5 inches to about 3 inches in length, but most of these are probably 2 inches or smaller. They tend to be more rounded. They don't have much of a stalk. They have very thin cone scales, and they're very persistent. So when you look up at the crown of a Virginia pine tree, you're going to find new cones out on the new growth, but you're also going to find them further back on the stem. Sometimes you've got cones that are 4, 5, 6 years old that tend to be more grayish. Out here on the tip, they tend to be a more brown, and they'll have this purplish fringe on the underside of these cone scales, another great ID characteristic. And then finally, right on the tip of the cone scale, you're going to have a very sharp prickle. So they're very sharp or heavily armed. Virginia pine has a typical pine bark, but when you get up into the upper portion of the stem, it tends to be more of an orangish color, not quite as orange as you might find with Scotch pine, but it'll kind of have a rusty color to the upper part of the stem or trunk. They're also very poor self-pruners, so they'll hang onto those low branches. Even though there may not be live foliage on those branches, they tend to hang onto those lower dead branches. We also call Virginia pine scrub pine because it typically invades areas that are abandoned. Very common in southern Ohio to have old agricultural fields that were heavily abused, poor nutrient quality, poor drainage, and they come in pure stands of Virginia pine. And when they do that, you'll have fairly straight stems, but they will almost always be very poorly self-pruned, so they'll hang on to those dead branches. Again, this is Virginia pine, also known as scrub pine. Thanks, and be sure to take at least part of your day to spend it in the woods.
Hello, my name is Richard Purdin. I'm with the Ohio State University Extension Agency. I am an Ag and Natural Resource Educator and Community Development Educator for Adams County, Ohio. And today I just want to have a little discussion about winter farm hazards and some things to think about if you are a producer that does work out on the farm during the wintertime. These are some things to be aware of and take note of before heading out to do your chores during the winter months. So farming is a very hazardous occupation. This is especially true during the winter months. There's many risks and hazards to be aware of as our temperatures drop below freezing. Inclement weather such as snow or ice can all serve as risk to your health, not only your physical health, but your mental health also. Remember, no matter how important the job might seem, putting your health and safety first is priority. As farmers, a lot of times we will push our bodies to the limits to get a job done, but in most cases, we need to be wise when actually deciding what to do and what to just wait until another day or better weather. So here's some steps that as farmers we need to be aware of and also take note of before actually doing our chores out in the winter weather. We can't avoid being out in the weather. That's part of farming. We're definitely exposed to the environment. No matter how much we try and no matter how much technology improves, we have to do our chores out in the weather. And this is one thing to be aware of before heading out to do your work. Make sure that you know the weather forecast. Now, granted, a lot of times the forecasts are not as accurate as what we might want, but it is a good start by watching the weather forecast. That way you know if there's any changes that's going to take place throughout the working day, or if there's any uncertain weather events such as a snowstorm or ice storm that might be heading in your direction in the near future while you're doing your work. Make sure that you wear the proper clothing. So for many of us doing work, we we can easily get hot, and then we want to take off our clothing when we're doing physical labor out in the cold. But it's necessary to keep your skin covered, make sure that we have plenty of layers, and dress for the weather, I guess you could say. So as the weather goes from chilly to extreme cold, multiple layers need to be added to help insulate your body temperature and keep from exposure to frostbite and other things that can occur from exposing your skin to cold weather or cold wind or rain, snow, ice. All those things can serve as hazards to our health. Avoid walking with large loads. I know myself, I am very guilty of this. I try and reduce my amount of trips by carrying more, but it's important to carry smaller loads, especially when the ground is covered with ice or snow. Take smaller steps and pace yourself throughout the day. It's very easy to want to get as much done in a short period of time as possible, but we need to make sure from a health standpoint that we're not overexerting ourselves during the winter months. When the weather is colder, our body has to work harder to stay warm. This puts stress on the heart, so we need to make sure that we pace ourselves throughout the day. Danger zones on the farm. These are some places on the farm that can serve as risk of slipping, falling, or getting hurt in other certain ways. And also note to self, if there's ice on fences, gates, a lot of tendencies, especially young farmers as I just like to climb over gates rather than opening them, especially when livestock's up against gates. But this is not a very wise decision because you can easily slip off of bar gates or other types of gates or wooden board fences or board gates just as easy. So we need to make sure that we take time, open the gate and walk through it rather than trying to climb over the gate. But areas around the barns or concrete pads such as this, where holes might settle after a rainfall and then they refreeze and create an icy layer. These are easy places to slip and fall. Concrete berms can also serve as slipping hazards. It could be along a gutter or along a manure storage pit. These are all places that can serve as slip and fall zones. So avoid walking on these areas or use grit, sand, or salt to help melt the ice or make it better for traction and footing. This also is great for livestock too. Hogs, cattle, sheep, anything that might be eating around these areas or drinking around waters, they can easily slip and fall. And if you're working alongside them, they can easily slip and fall into you and hurt you too. So make sure that you take time and keep the snow, the ice cleared from these areas. Freezing water hydrants or hydrants around the hydrant, the concrete pads around the hydrants can easily accumulate ice where cattle or any kind of livestock drink out of them. They will slobber or spill the water, and then ice accumulates around it. Making sure that we bust that ice off and keep that clear not only helps you keep safe from not slipping around it, but also keeps the animals safe from slipping too, and makes for a healthy environment for them. Avoid climbing silos or grain bins if ice is collected on the steps. This can be easily overlooked during the wintertime because there are sometimes we have to climb up into the silo to work on unloaders. Maybe you're trying to sell your grain for the new year contracts, trying to fill your contracts and get grain moved out of the grain bins. A lot of times we just overlook the fact that those steps of the ladders can be covered with ice and an easy way to slip and fall and really hurt yourself, or even cause enough injury, or even cause death at certain heights. So we need to be aware of our surroundings and make sure that we're not trying to do things that should not be done during certain weather. Fix gutters and downspouts to avoid ice buildup. And this can be for homeowners too, not just farmers, where we got gutters just open to the surface of the soil. They can easily refreeze, especially in southern Ohio, where our weather, usually a snowstorm always starts out as a heavy rainfall event turning into snow. So rainfall can fill up gutters and the water. Also, the melting of snow during the heat of the day and then the refreezing at night can cause an icy mess around downspouts and gutters. So fixing these, putting underground outlets, underground to where the water flows underground and outlets in another area is a great thing to do. That way we don't have a ice skating rink around our house or our barns. And I just want to end the slideshow by saying thank you to all the farmers, and make sure that you are weather aware and don't push it, your bodies to the extreme limits. A lot of times, like I said, we try and get as much done during the day as possible. But sometimes we just need to say, today's not a good day to do that. We'll try and get it done on a better day. But at the end of the day, our livestock do need to be fed. They need to be taken care of. So doing your best through hazardous weather. Just remember to think about your health too, because no matter how important the job might seem, your health is very important to not only yourself, your family, but the whole nation is depending on you to produce healthy food every day. So we need to keep safe and healthy. Everybody have a safe winter, and if you have any questions, don't hesitate to call your local extension office. A lot of times they have great fact sheets and bulletins on how to stay safe during the winter season. Everybody have a great day.
Thanks for tuning in for this week's episode of the Southern Ohio Farm Show. We want to keep you aware of a few things that are coming up this week that you still have time to tune in for. Coming up yet this week, on Thursday, tomorrow, we have an episode of Greenhouse Management Workshop that's virtual from 10 to 2. There's a program on soil health that's from 8 to 8:30. There's also a program on commercial landscape, turf, and ornamental pesticide applicator recertifications. This is from 8:30 a.m. to 3:30. There's a disease management option for today's weather from 9 to 10:30. The 2021 Cow-Calf Management School is being held in Noble County from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. And then Eastern Ohio Women in Ag Series programs is available from noon to 1. And then finally, on Friday, there's another greenhouse management workshop from 10 until 2. And there's a living landscape speaker series from 10 to 11 a.m. If any of these programs are of interest to you, please contact your extension office to get more information on how to join. And please feel free to reach out if you have any questions. And we can't wait to see you again next week for another all-new episode of the Southern Ohio Farm Show, where we're going to be talking about the Super Bowl and different components of agriculture that make it tick.